folks. Welcome back to another edition of Bullet Points. I'm one of your hosts today, Kevin Nasseri, here with Mike Bunt for a special post-game edition of a UB double victory by the men's and women's team. We're here to talk about that wrap-it-up post-game show, 77-67 Bulls over the Hilltoppers. A game where they looked, hate to say it, mightily efficient on the offensive side of the floor, and that's with missing their best player, Janathan Williams, and their backup point guard. So interesting note there that we saw some minutes from Jamon Bivens. We saw minutes early by Blocker, a couple of early turnovers. He didn't see the floor again. Hardnett and Fagan, but that was it on the Bulls bench. Pretty efficient night all around, right, Mike?
Yeah, that's probably the best we've seen this UB team play all season. If you take into account how they played, who they were going up against, playing on the road. They did very well today. They clearly were the better team on the court. They out-rebounded Western Kentucky. I believe the numbers was 42-28, 17 offensive rebounds, 16 assists compared to only 9 for Western Kentucky. The ball movement was very good for the Bulls today. They were moving around. They were getting open looks, and they were connecting on their shots. They got hot for a period in the second half where they went on an 11-0 run, where Keyshawn Bruden had 3 consecutive threes. His only 3 baskets of the game, but at a good time. And they weren't afraid to attack Sharp inside, who, while he's 7 foot something, I don't know if 7'4", 7'5", whatever, some crazy number, he was slow, and Mbala was able to just dominate down low and get opportunity after opportunity. And give credit to Rondo Segu, one of his finest games of the season, 18 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. This was a team that knew they needed to have players step up in Janathan Williams' absence today. And for the first time this year in a critical spot, they got their players, their entire team really, to step up in that type of situation.
And we got some good news coming out of the post-game show that Jones and Williams will play on Saturday. It is just St. John Fisher, but whatever. It's still big news if you have those players back for that game. An important game to miss here tonight, but didn't really affect the team much. Thought they played, like Mike said, one of their best games of the year. It seems like we actually got some good coaching in this one in terms of good ball movement and did exactly what they needed to do to kind of mitigate the risk or mitigate the loss of Janathan Williams, which was really important here. So that's a pretty big news and nugget. I wanted to bring up the fact that you had a really, really, really efficient game from Mbala. 8 for 17. You'd like to see him clean that up a little bit, but shot 3 for 3 from 3, Mike. That's impressive. A guy that we all have at times, maybe wanted to scale that back. Skogman, 0 for 3. But I do have to talk about the officiating. I don't know what your opinion of that was. I don't know. Like, that was one of the worst and softest tech calls I've ever seen, to the fact of their announcers disagreeing with the tech. It was really soft. It was a game that they don't get many foul calls against them. They weren't even in the single bonus at any point. I think at the very end, it still didn't achieve the single bonus. So an impressive way to only commit single-digit fouls for an entire basketball game. So that's a little bit of an impressive style of basketball there by Western Kentucky. But, UB still turned the ball over 16 times. You'd like to see that clean up. 4 from Segu, 2 from Bruden, 3 from Skogman, multiple turnovers by pretty much each member of the floor. 16 turnovers is still too many, matching 16 assists. Outside of a fairly efficient game by Segu, that ratio is just not going to get it done, Mike. But, you saw a 45% field goal percentage, only shot 4 free throws, Mbala missing both of his, Segu making both of his. They've been a fairly decent shooting team from the line here this season, but you got to go and mention the Fagan 7.8 rebounds performance here from him. That's a really big performance off the bench.
Yeah, Fagan really has stepped up in the last couple games. I thought he looked solid during the Bana game at times, and today, once again, he's starting to contribute at a higher level that we really haven't seen consistently from him throughout his UB career. And if he can continue performing at that level, that's going to be a game changer for this UB squad heading into MAC play, especially for depth reasons alone. I thought you hit the nail in the coffin. The turnovers were really the only thing I was concerned about today. 16 turnovers is a tad bit high for my liking. But if you look at the overall normal numbers, like we said, we already hit rebounding and assists. 45.6% from the field, 31 of 68 overall, and then 39.4% from three. I believe it was 13 of 33. So those are good numbers. That's what you want to see in a road game. And it's almost in a situation like this where you're missing your best player, it makes you go out of your comfort zone. You have to play a different style of basketball, not as much ISO. And you never want to see Jonathan Williams out of the lineup because obviously UB is a better team with him than without him. But what I really have been impressed, at least the last couple games, is that it feels like after a slow start that UB might actually have a better bench than what we originally might have thought after the first couple games of the season. I'm not saying they're deep. I'm not saying that they're going to contribute a ton, but to have Fagan contribute, you get some minutes from Hardenett. Obviously, you had to have Bruden step up into the starting lineup, and it's a team that's they're not going to be great this year. They're not going to be a top 50 team like we hyped before the season as a possibility, a top 50 to 65 team. But I think we're seeing some signs now that they're going to be strong heading into MAC play, especially with the Mid-American Conference looking awfully weak outside of Ohio, Miami, and Toledo.
Yeah, it's really weak outside of the top four. It's bad. Like, it's to the point where you can't slip up again. You cannot slip up against any of them. And the net rankings would tell you you have to win by 10. That's to max out your net points.
I've never seen the bottom half of the conference this week. I've seen it bad before when you're looking at the MAC West compared to the MAC East, but I've never seen it at the point where Akron and Kent State are looking at, I know it's early, but net rankings of around 200 at this point in the season, based on what I was looking at earlier. Maybe I was looking at something incorrect, but when you have Akron and Kent State as bottom teams, it really tells you the conference isn't going to be that strong this year. So UB has to capitalize in games against teams like Western Kentucky, who, while their metrics aren't strong right now, they're going to get better as the season goes on because they do have talented players and a good coaching staff. And the next one that stands out to me is going to be UC Irvine. A couple easy ones coming up against St. John Fisher, and then you got Canisius. That should be a pair of wins, get you to 7-3.
Irvine's 45th in that, Mike.
Yeah, that's a huge game. So you're looking at it. Even obviously, we were disappointed with Stephen F. Austin loss earlier this year, even though they were a good team. I look at that as more of a missed opportunity. You think about it, going into UC Irvine, they should be 7-3. Canisius is horrible this year. They're just awful. And St. John Fisher is an exhibition for basically all intents and purposes. So you're looking at 7-3 with UC Irvine really determining where you probably think this team will be going into conference play.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge number to get to. Like, that's a big win that you need to make up for with a couple of the losses that they should have potentially had. The biggest one being Stephen F. Austin. You can't lose that game. That they're ranked pretty much along the same lines of Western Kentucky. It's a game you need to win on neutral court by double digits to kind of maximize that too, if you care about this kind of stuff. And I think Irvine came into a bigger game than UB even anticipated. They thought it would be a solid game, probably a pretty good game. They didn't anticipate getting a quad one game right outside of a quad one because it's a home game actually. So you need to, it's just right outside of a quad one home game for UB. That's what you're looking for. It's a quad two home game. That's about as good as you can get right now. So that's a really big game for them in terms of rankings and whatnot. Actually, UB went up 10 net points from 114 to 104. So they were ranked pretty low going into that Bonnes game. And they got a couple of points off of their perform a one possession loss, which actually helps you against a team higher and stronger than you. So in terms of ranking, so that's a pretty important note.
Got a little factor on UC Irvine too before they take on UB. They have quite the stretch coming up in front of them. On Saturday, they take on Fresno State. After that, they'll be at USC. And then they have a home game. Actually, pardon me, not a home game. It looks like this one will be in Akron, which is interesting, against Duquesne, against Keith Dambrot. Looks like that'll be a game in his former city. So that's not going to be an easy trio of games for UC Irvine heading into Buffalo. So hopefully they can manage to win at least one of those or maybe squeak out two of those and keep their metrics high. But UC Irvine is definitely going to be battle-tested heading into their game against UB. And I don't think the Bulls are going to scare them or intimidate them heading into that matchup.
And St. Bonaventure's in that 78. Wow, that's not going to help them come selection.
They'll be
Day.
okay. Bono will be fine. Obviously, playing in the 8-10, they're going to play enough high-level competition to improve their numbers. That is a little scary early on. I would say for Bono right now, they're a good team, but they're sleepwalking a little bit. They have routinely gotten off to slow starts to their games and then assert themselves in the second half. Unfortunately, their one loss against Northern Iowa was against a team that I think has only one victory against a D1 opponent other than them the entire season. So that definitely hurt them a little bit. And they've also played some weak teams like Canisius, Siena, Loyola. So once the competition rises up, which is going to begin this weekend for St. Bonaventure against 15th ranked UConn, they're going to have opportunities to rise up. But I know you don't want to talk about Bono, so we'll stick with the UB talk.
Yeah, for sure. I just think they're going to struggle here to win those games. They're going to be in trouble going into conference play. But anyways, waiting for my live refresh of Ken Palm. UB is still sitting at 81 before that game. I'm interested to see what happens. I like the shout out, by the way, almost a direct read from our tweets at Bullet Points about being the 333rd ranked in luck. Shout out to the commentators that read our and watch our post-game show and will read our tweets. As we've had one actually, reach out to us and thank us for our show. The Bono's announcer last game actually did so for the NBC Sportsnet stream that they put it on. So shout out to those guys that listen to some of the stats we put out. But 333rd in luck, we tweeted that out. That can be anticipated, or that can be kind of digested two different ways. Is that digested on a guise of they're just unlucky, they're not as good as we thought, and good as Ken Palm thinks, or is it something to do with they're not hitting their stride or potential based on coaching? So there's two different ways you can look at that luck ranking that, quite frankly, the way that we expected UB to play, how they should be playing, it's been an unlucky season so far in terms of that 333rd. We'll see how this win alters that ranking. I would envision that some of their metrics will come back to shape after this game today. And that might go down, in the 200s probably after today, after a 10-point road win. Kind of playing to a lot of your efficiencies, but still only scoring in the 70s. That is a factor. Offensive efficiency is a factor in that luck ranking. So we'll see what that looks like in that factor. But I was glad to see that shouted out, Mike, because that is something I look at to see how good are they. And not only are good, it's not an opinion, right? It's not Mike's opinion. It's not Kevin's opinion. It's how good are they metric based? How good are they when you look at the rankings and their tempo and a lot of the other offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, things like that, strength of schedule. And then you factor in how did the results turn out? So it is statistics based. It's not like, oh, I personally think they've been unlucky. They lost on a 3-pointer at the end of the game. Efficiencies would have said UB should have beat Bonaventure prior to that, based on some of the way that the games were going. They took a huge dip in the luck ranking after the Bonas game, showing me that the outcome could have been and should have been better based on metrics, Mike. So that's a really cool one to hear shouted out on air. But I think what was the most shocking to me about this Western Kentucky team, it just wasn't as good as I thought it was. I mean, they just weren't very good. And their net, kind of proves that. I mean, it's just not a very good net ranking for them.
They feel like they should be a very good program. They recruit at an elite level. The players they bring to Bowling Green, Kentucky, it's quite frankly
for 180 net.
Yeah, and you know what? And it's not even like that is a go-to destination. It's market 175, 176 for TV. So it's a small little area. Not much to do there, but they love their basketball and they have a storied mid-major program. They have won a bunch of tournament games. They have won in the NIT. I was so excited about the possibility of them joining the Mid-American Conference a month ago, and still hope that somehow down the line that can happen, because I think just watching the game, watching just the production alone, it was better than what you see by most MAC broadcasts. The arena was nice quality. Stands weren't full, but there was a little bit of an environment over there. And you think about the players that they have had come through their program in just recent years alone. Mitchell Robinson, who plays on the New York Knicks, Charles Bassey, I believe another person in the NBA right now who played 3 years at Western Kentucky. Now you have Harmon, who hasn't seen the court, but the 60th overall recruit, I believe, according to 224/7, who had offers from Kansas and Louisville and chose Rick Stansbury in Western Kentucky. Now, why isn't he seeing the court? Who knows right now? But a transfer from Cincinnati who averaged 15 points a game. They got guys. Now, I think some of it is because they keep getting these high recruits. They all want to come in and be the guy. There might be some issues getting them to buy into a team concept because for whatever reason they've fallen short. But you really saw today that their lack of depth and just playing on the court as a team, it just there was something missing. They were sloppy.
Yeah, it was weird. The zone was sloppy too.
For having a 7-footer on their team, they couldn't really rebound well. Very poor on the defensive glass. And outside of maybe a 5-minute stretch in the first half where they went up, I believe 9 points, like maybe 8-9 points, 20-11, 20-12. It really felt that UB was controlling the tempo of this game throughout. Even when the game was tied 50-50 at the midway point of the second half, maybe 12, 13 minutes left, it still felt that UB was dictating what was going on in the court and that they ultimately would be the ones deciding who was going to win this game or not. It was just a question of, was UB going to hit their open looks or were they going to miss them? Because I never felt that Western was really putting their mark on the contest.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what's an important note too is it's the third game in a row they've held the team under 67 points. They've done it now 5 games, so the defense has been there a little bit, and it definitely was there in the Bonas game to get them through that run to get back into the game. But 67 allowed, 65 allowed, 49 allowed, 65 and 66 allowed earlier against UNT and Rider. Really, only Illinois State with their 90 burger and Michigan with their 88 burger have really scored at any type of clip. UB wasn't. Didn't need to play a ton of defense against Illinois State, scoring 106. Still would have liked to see that number down. I mean, honestly, against Illinois State, that's a lot of points. But, outside of then that'll skew their total overall defense numbers, allowing 90 points there. That's more than they allowed to Michigan. But the 88 to Michigan and the 90 to Illinois State will kind of skew those numbers. And then the average performance against Stephen F. Austin, 79, that's just way too many as well. Well, those three will skew the overall number, but really the other games they've allowed under 67 points. Like that's a good note to see good defensive play. When UB rebounds the ball, they're a tough team to beat by in any maybe mid-major team. You can't beat them.
I feel like UB has the guys to rebound. I mean, you got Mbala, who's just a force down low, and I know some people have been critical of Skogman early on, saying he's a little bit slow, but I really do think Skogman adds something to this team. Is he going to be a great player at UB? Probably not, but I think he's going to be an impact guy. I think if you can get 7-8 points a game from him and add 5-6 rebounds, you're getting something that you aren't from anybody else. And now you add in that Trayvon Fagan starting to do a little bit of that too. The defense does have some ability, and it's really a little bit different than what you saw in the Oates days, which was more guard oriented and trying to get steals and pressure. You got some bigs down low that can play, and really it's a good sign. You brought the Stephen F. Austin. I know I said it for a second earlier. That's just the one game I wish they had back, because I don't know if they were mentally there for the beginning of that game. And once they did put it on, it was clear they were the better team. But yeah, defense-wise, a lot of encouraging signs early this year, and hopefully it continues into MAC play. And like I said earlier, with the way the conference is looking, there is the possibility they can go on some type of special run coming up when you get to January, February.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just an efficient game all the way around. I mean, Tagu did his part. Jack did what he could in stretches, and Bala played well. Skogman, I thought, added a lot at 6 and 6. Obviously 6.6 rebounds. And Fagan again at 7 and 8. But I just seen everywhere that watches UB, like between our group chats and like a bunch of other stuff. Like Bruton got buried today. Like 3 for 10 is just not good enough. He played good for 90 seconds, which made up for just one of the worst games ever. and kind of made it to be like an okay game. But just like by all accounts, I got UB fans messaging me, texting me like what I think about this guy. And just going to be honest, you need more from someone who's a double-digit scorer in mid-major basketball. And he's just not getting it done right now. But it's not even shooting 3 for 10, which is poor. I mean, that's just poor by all accounts. It's just the other stat lines that were infuriating to me. So we'll see what that's able to do. He should, be relegated to a bench player here, coming off the bench there very shortly. So expected a little bit more from him playing at Coastal Carolina for a few years, or for 1 year actually, and having a really good JUCO career, basically originally being recruited by Coach B, and then basically, given to the new staff to recruit in. So he's a guy I'd like to see, really pick it up. But that's key. He's a key bench player for the team. So we'll see what happens with him. But I saw him get buried pretty much across UB land today. So Mike, I think you brought up a good point. The best way to kind of wrap the show up is looking at the MAC net. And it's really interesting. They do have 8 teams at 200 or less. I mean, that's just tough. That's tough. You can't drop a game to Kent State when they're ranked 200. Now everyone's going to say, doesn't matter. You got to win the MAC tournament. Who really cares if you go, 15-5 or 13-7? Does it really matter? I would say you need the seeding, number one. Number two, yeah, because when you go to look at it, and if you do win, you obviously want to get as good of a seed as possible. Like the 12 seed's really important to hang on to because you get a really good matchup in the NCAA tournament. I'm sorry that I care about them being at least a 12 seed over a 14 seed. That's important to me. Your path can be just so much different. So that's why some of these net rankings matter. Basically, based on the net, UB should drop like 2 MAC games. It should be 18-2 in MAC play.
I won't go there yet. I won't go.
I'm not saying they're going to. Definitely, trust me. Definitely not. I'm saying based on the metrics.
Yeah, and especially when they only play Ohio once, and
right. Akron once even, and then they're not even great.
So
but still,
what I find, you hit the net is just crazy. Just looking at it, to see all those teams where they're at, it's
Bowling Green's 222.
It's brutal right now. I won't say that the expectation has to be 18-2 or 17-3 yet, just because
that's just what the numbers say. Yeah, like obviously they're not going to do that.
Probably better than what their records indicate and what some of their metrics indicate. Going into MAC play though, it's going to be. I think it's a 3-way battle. We'll see about Miami, Ohio. I think they're good, but I think they're the 4th team. Just Ohio, Toledo, those are going to be the competition, a 3-way race between those 2 teams in UB, and we'll see where it goes. I think you might have a 1-2-3 that's 16-4, 15-5, 14-6, something like that. And that's not very common, but the early numbers would show that there's a disparity between those 3 teams and the rest of what we're facing in the conference. One quick thing I did want to say about Bruden is I think you're right. Overall today was a pretty poor effort outside of a hot period for about 2 minutes where he caught fire. But I think that's what you get with a guy like that. He can get hot at any moment. So you give him the rein to shoot and take the shots that he wants. You kind of just have to go with it. If he's making it, you feel great. If he's missing it, you're upset. And he just doesn't get enough volume most of the time for the limited minutes that he plays. The more frustrating thing for me watching him isn't his misses. It's the sloppy play, the turnovers, or the chance when there's a guy driving the other way and he fouls him, but he still lets the guy convert on an and one opportunity. He's a bench player right now, and as a bench player, you don't get as much reign to make mistakes, and he seems to make a few too many for my liking. But he's going to have plenty of opportunities to turn things around, and let's hope he does. I do think his one season at Coastal Carolina where he averaged double digits does show a little bit of the talent disparity in a conference like the Sun Belt compared to the Mid-American
basketball,
Conference.
at least, yeah.
We like to talk down on – a lot of people like to talk down on the MAC, but overall this conference has been solid for half a decade. And even though it might be a down year this upcoming season, there's still enough talent at the top of this league, as we mentioned, that really still makes it a good mid-major. We can dog the Central Michigans, the Eastern Michigans, the Northern Illinois, and some
those places are hard to play though. Like Northern and EMU, until you've played in there, I don't want to hear it.
We can dog all the schools, but go on the road at Toledo, go on the road at Ohio, which luckily UB escapes this year, and try to win those games. It's not easy. So encouraging performance today, and I think for Bulls fans, we all needed it because a loss today, and I think there would have been some people starting fires. And not saying that we wouldn't have been one of them. Who knows how we would have reacted? But it feels like this was the relief we needed after a very stressful but hard-fought effort against St. Bonaventure. And now we can kind of relax and settle down heading into conference play a little bit.
Yeah, and I know that and Western Kentucky's hard to beat in their barn. Like in terms of, I think limited teams have been able to do it so far. So that's just impressive alone. But it still wouldn't have been great. Their best player had all types of things. He's playing today for the first time. Didn't look good at all in the first half. Came on a little bit in the second half. So missing him and then them being on like a 6-man rotation beside him still would have been a pretty poor loss, even without Jonathan. They are net 200, Mike, roughly. Like, we do have to say what it is. That is about what we've been dogging the MAC for. So it would have been a pretty poor loss in a way. One that they didn't expect to be that poor, to be honest. They got the boost with the Irvine game, and they got the downfall of this game. They kind of expected probably that to be a little bit more level, not 50 net, not net 200. They probably expected both of them to be 120, 130, something like 120, 110.
They scheduled this game hoping that this would be a contest that would boost their metrics.
They wanted a mod one game on the road. They wanted a team net in the 60s or 70s.
You schedule Western Kentucky because going into the year, you think they're going to be a top 100 team, worst case scenario. You think maybe they'll be 90, 95, but they got good players. You think they can win they could still win Conference USA. There's no reason why they can't. And they're only 9 games into their season. They figure things out. If Harmon comes back, this could still end up being a game.
That could boost it.
This could still end up being a game that looks all right for UB at the end of the year. The net is very is a very fragile system, especially early in the year. That's why they don't come out with it until after the first week in December. One last quick thing I want to bring up, Kev, before we wrap up. Mid-major top 25. I follow this all year for the people that follow the bullet points account. UB started the year number 6. They are currently 24th. That is a 18-spot drop since the beginning of the year.
They play like that, though, Mike.
Ohio is number 1 in the MAC at 12. They started in the 20s. Toledo is 16. They started, I believe, around 17, so they've been consistent. Miami, Ohio, and Kent State, the only 2 other schools in the MAC receiving votes. And one quick note about the Redhawks. They, I believe, are 5-3, but 2 of their losses came by 1 point each. Lost on the road against Cincinnati by 1. Heartbreaker for them. And then lost by 1 to Indiana State. So,
yeah, same with UB. 2 on a buzzer beater, and then a 1-point loss to Stephen F. Austin. So they're right there with that. You bring up a good point though, because I want to check what's Miami, Ohio, guess what? They're now locked 340, one of the lowest in the country. So UB, so there it is. UB and Miami have had some pretty poor luck based on that.
Good teams that could be even better if they just had a few things bounce their way.
And literally, we got an updated number. It's just cool to have on air. UB was boosted 10 slots to 72 in the Ken Pom rankings after that 10-point road victory. So they're in the 70s right now. You break the 60s, and you're talking about the 12 seed, Mike. You're talking about the 12 seed. So that's really important that a couple things bounce their way, maybe even a Stephen SFA win and a St. Louis loss rather than a SFA loss and an Illinois State win probably puts you in the 60s.
Yeah,
right now.
absolutely. So one more quick thing, too. You're bringing up the metrics. Why do people care? Why do we care if it's just going to be all about Cleveland? Well, we care not just for the reasons that you mentioned, which is seeding, but even if UB doesn't make the NCAA tournament, we still want them to be in the NIT. This is the mid-major team in a mid-major conference. The NIT is a relevant tournament. Hell, if the NIT doesn't mean anything, St. Bonaventure would lose 90% of their history. I mean, their history is winning the 1977 NIT and finishing third place, I believe, 3 other times. Outside of their Final Four, the NIT is their postseason success. So for a school like UB, making the NIT means something. And I know you can do that by just winning the conference regular season crown. So that's one way. But another way is have good metrics, get in the top 70, top 80, and then you can get an at-large bid to the NIT, even if you don't win your conference regular season title. And I know some people are going to be like, it's NCAA tournament or bust. I hear you. I feel that way in many regards, but sometimes those 3 days.
What about another MAC championship loss?
One bounce can go the other way. Unfortunately, as Bulls fans, we all know about 2005 when Bobcats had that last-second tip and it ended. So you know what? You still want to have a chance to play for something, even when luck doesn't go your way in Cleveland. So.
And last year, even a little less dramatic, too. Like, I would have expected UB to take care of Ohio, who came in ice cold prior to the MAC tournament. UB went into their barn and crushed them. They went in ice cold into Cleveland. You probably, after that huge overtime win against Akron, you're expecting a W there against Ohio. And it did turn out that way. They didn't play well at all. So, kind of been bitten there in MAC tournaments. So you're right. I'd like to see the NIT. The problem with that was we went to Colorado State and we played them in North Texas, right?
Yeah.
And really super duper random. And they just didn't play quite well. They battled. But quite frankly, like if we take the NIT series, I think they're going back to their normal field. It is a pretty good tournament to be in. And I hope that that's their ultimate goal, to be a pretty high seed in that. If they can't get it done in Cleveland, because right now, obviously, with the loss to Bonnie's and SFA, they are not even close to being considered an NCAA tournament at large bid. So everything
that's not even something even worth our time to even think about at this point.
No, we'd have to win like 12 straight to even like talk about it.
They either needed to beat Michigan and like basically run the table non-conference outside of maybe Bonaventure, or they had to beat Bonaventure and run non-conference and maybe lose like 2 or 3 MAC games total. But that's a non-starter right now.
And Eastern Michigan double overtime against Illinois State earlier this year. So that's the level of Eastern Michigan. They're just like
Eastern Michigan almost lost to Niagara tonight. Niagara had a 3 at the buzzer that was no good. So the Purple Eagles lost by 2 at Eastern Michigan.
That's a bad team. That's a bad team. The MAC had a rough night. This a rough week.
Stan Heath back in the MAC at EMU.
Yeah. Youngstown State with a win in the MAC against the MAC play today. It's just quite frankly, I think their metrics aren't much different of their records. So I don't think there's a lot to worry about, but that doesn't mean you can just go into NIU and roll them. Central Michigan lost to Youngstown State today. Xavier just rolled Ball State. It wasn't even a competition. Yesterday, Bowling Green had their biggest win of the year against Oakland. That's a good win.
That's a really good win. Ohio almost lost to St. Francis last Saturday. And one quick little update on the Bobcats for UB land right now. They're playing without Dwight Wilson, who's probably going to miss the year. He had ACL surgery in June.
Is he going to get his 7th year next year, Mike?
Who knows? I mean, they might try. But another really big thing to monitor right now is that London McDay is not playing due to personal reasons. No one knows why he's not playing. He's with the team. But London McDay has not played in the Bobcats' last few games, and it sounds like it's not something that's going to change anytime soon. With him out of the lineup, the Bobcats' bench is even lesser than what they were, which was considered a pretty average at best bench to start.
What about Tommy Schmock?
Oh, my.
Tommy Schmock.
You really want to comment on that? Yeah, he seems like a good guy. I would have no issues seeing him play a couple minutes a game, but it seems like he's going to get relied on a little bit more than what he should at this point. He's a D2 guy that's getting to play D1 basketball, so I'm happy
for you, Tommy. Good for you, Tommy Schmock.
Hey, I mean, good for him.
Good for Tommy Schmock. We have plenty of time to talk about UB Ohio coming down the stretch. UB's luck ranking still sitting at 313. Like I thought, it didn't go down that much. So even with that performance, like I said, UB has a lot of making up to do to get the wins away from the metrics. They need to match the metrics. And even tonight, their tempo ranking, their offensive ranking, things like that, there's still some inefficiencies there. So I mean, I'm very interested to see where that lands. Basically saying, Ken Palm thinks UB is a top 60, top 50 team. That's straight up. That's what they think, and their metric based. That's what they think based on their metrics, that they are a top 50, top 60 team. So until they get there, that luck ranking is going to harbor toward the bottom of college basketball, Mike. So keep an eye on that. But this is a great 35-minute show. We appreciate everybody tuning in for this big win for UB, their biggest out-of-conference game. They played really well, played without Janathan Williams, and they played a really efficient basketball game. So appreciate everybody coming out here tonight. From Kevin and Mike from Bullet Points, we'll catch you shortly, and good night now.